So, which is my favorite version of QuickBooks? My favorite version is QuickBooks Desktop Accountant Edition. And I will explain in this video why in great detail. Hi, my name is Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA and an advanced QuickBooks Pro advisor. I've been using QuickBooks for almost 20 years, and I've been using it professionally for about 12 years. So I want to walk you through why I strongly feel that QuickBooks Desktop Accountant is the best version of QuickBooks out of the entire ecosystem. So I'm going to start with pricing. QuickBooks Desktop Pro, Premier, and Accountant, the three desktop versions, are one-time purchase licenses. QuickBooks Accountant will be the highest price of the options from the one-time fee license, such as Pro, Premier, and Accountant. Then we're going to talk quickly about Enterprise a little bit later on. You can purchase QuickBooks Accountant Edition for $550 for one license. And it goes all the way to about $1,500 for 5 licenses. There's a 10 license version for accounting firms, but you will still have a limit of 5 concurrent users in a single QuickBooks file. So even if you have a 10 user license of QuickBooks Accountant, you will be limited to 5 people in the same exact file working at the same time. The license type and support in QuickBooks Desktop, it's a little bit peculiar. So in the Plus editions of QuickBooks Desktop, something that Intuit introduced a couple of years ago, you pay annually for the licenses. But anything in the desktop world that doesn't have the word plus in it, these are permanent licenses, and these are supported for about 3 years after the year version up to May 31st. So for example, the 2019 license will stop functioning on May 31st of 2022. And let me take that back. It won't stop functioning. They will stop supporting it. So it will continue to work. It can technically work forever, but there are certain things, connected services, such as payroll, merchant services, or even downloading transactions. It's something that Intuit may not support past that 3-year range. So if you are purchasing a desktop license of QuickBooks, whether it's Pro, Premier, or Accountant, which is the one I'm recommending, you would consider purchasing a new license every 3 years, which is something you may have to do anyway, because if Windows upgrades to a different version, Windows 11, Windows 12, Windows 13, who knows what could happen in the next 3 years. If Windows itself doesn't support an old version of QuickBooks, that could be a challenge up in itself. So I never sell QuickBooks Desktop with the expectation that it will work very well past 3 years, but in theory, it could work forever. Anyway, Windows or Mac is another question I get quite a bit. QuickBooks Desktop, Pro, Premier, and Accountant, if it doesn't have the word Mac in it, it's only designed to work in a Windows PC. According to the Intuit website, it needs to be the most updated version of Windows 7 or above, Windows 8, Windows 10. And if you're using Windows Server, you can use the most updated version of Windows Server 2008 all the way to Windows Server 2016. So it's got to be a Windows machine. There is a version of QuickBooks Mac, but it's very different than this, and I wouldn't compare it. It really wouldn't be apples to apples comparison. Now, what about QuickBooks Pro or QuickBooks Premier? So QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Accountant are known to be as the same family. So QuickBooks Accountant can work backwards compatible with any version of Pro or any version of Premier, as long as it's the same version. Everything that QuickBooks Desktop Pro, which is what most people buy, the most basic version of QuickBooks Desktop, will be in the Accountant Edition. In addition, you're going to get the Premier features in the Accountant Edition and some additional ones, which we'll talk about briefly. Now, what about QuickBooks Online? That's a really common question that I have. So QuickBooks Desktop has a very different look and feel. On top of that, it generally has a lot more features, especially in the areas of custom reports, inventory, job costing. So desktop licenses, in addition, allow you to purchase one license and manage unlimited number of companies. That's a big plus for an accountant or someone managing multiple businesses with a single license. QuickBooks Online, you normally pay per company, per license, per month, or per company per month, really. And QuickBooks Online is a great platform, but it really serves a different purpose. And I think QuickBooks Desktop is much better fit for certain type of companies, especially for contractors, inventory type businesses, and any company that wants to build some sort of customization with reports. But QuickBooks Online is the future. And at some point, I will probably love QuickBooks Online more than Desktop. But for the time being, QuickBooks Desktop Accountant is still my favorite edition. Best bang for the buck. Now, specific features worth mentioning, and this is not limited to these, but they're worth mentioning. You can do sales orders and back ordering of inventory with QuickBooks Premier or Accountant. You can create purchase orders straight from estimates or from sales orders with Premier or Accountant. You can do inventory assemblies, that's for manufacturers, and manage multiple units of measure for your inventory with Premier or Accountant. You can do minimum, maximum levels of inventory, which means you can track how little you want of a specific product and how much you want of that specific product when it comes to replenishing. You can have some additional industry-specific reports for construction, manufacturers, wholesalers, nonprofits, professional services, and retail. It has a balance sheet by class. It's not great, but it has it. So only Premier Accountant has that. It has a job costing center with special job costing reports and tools for contractors and construction companies. And finally, it has some advanced price levels that allows you to set a specific fixed price per item based on who you're selling it to. Now, the Accountant Edition, the one I'm recommending, has in addition a couple of features here, which I think are the most important reasons why I think this is the best version. One, the Accountant Edition can toggle to any other version. So if you're an accounting professional and your customer has Pro or has Premier Wholesale, you can toggle so you can see exactly what they're looking at. I find that to be very powerful. You can open two QuickBooks files simultaneously. So you can have two company opens open at the same time. With the Accountant Edition, you cannot do this with Pro or Premier. You can do batch enter of transactions, which I'm going to demo shortly. You can do batch reclassify, which I'll demo as well. You can do batch deleting, which I'll demo, and batch merge, which I'll demo. So those four features to me are the best reasons why QuickBooks Desktop Accountant is the best option. So I'll demo those four. In addition, you can work with the accountant's copy, which means an end user can send a copy of the database to the accountant. The accountant open it in the Accountant Edition, make changes, and send the changes back. I'm not a big fan of that feature, but some accountants love it. You can create a period copy, which means if you get audited for like 2 years, you can make a copy of the QuickBooks file that only contains those 2 years worth of transactions, which are crucial to keep the audit within scope of whatever time range that is. It has some additional client data review tools, such as the ability to invoice write-off or write off invoices in batch. It has the ability to comment on reports. And it also has a fixed asset manager and a statement writer, which are some external tools that I personally don't use or support, but it comes with it, so it's worth mentioning. Now, another question I get quite a bit is, can I host QuickBooks Desktop Accountant on the cloud? Because Hector, you mentioned to me that cloud is the way to go, which I almost always say yes, cloud is the way to go. But what about a desktop edition? So you can actually host any versions of QuickBooks Desktop using a third-party service such as Right Networks. That's the biggest one, really, or any other Intuit-approved host provider. Typically, the hosting is around $50 a month per user. So that's in addition to whatever QuickBooks cost. Now, anyone with their own server can self-host. I personally self-host, which means I have my own server and I can access it from my house, from anywhere in the world, really. So consult your IT professional for self-hosting. Now, what about QuickBooks Enterprise? Well, I technically like QuickBooks Enterprise more than Accountant Edition because it has a lot more featers. But Enterprise costs at least around $1,000 a year for one user, and it goes all the way to about $3,000 a year for 5 users, and all the way to $7,600 a year for a 30 user. So it's a much bigger investment. So the reason why I'm saying the Desktop Accountant, I like it better than Enterprise, it's just a bang for the buck pricing scenario. Technically, I like Enterprise better. It has more stuff, but that's not the scope of this video. I'm looking for bang for the buck for most accounting professionals or most people just managing multiple QuickBooks files. I would recommend QuickBooks Desktop Accountant. Now, some resources I'm going to recommend. One, take a look at the article I wrote comparing all versions of QuickBooks Desktop. That's the first link in there. So let me show you what that looks like. That's right there on my website. I'll go ahead and paste this in the description of the video so you can access that as well. And in here I have basically a write-up where I kind of write about why I think Accountant is better, or Premier, or Enterprise, and I go feature by feature in detail. I wrote this whole thing that kind of walks you through the different versions. So that's one of the resources. The second one, which I'm very proud of, is the feature comparison matrix. Now, feature comparison matrix, something I've been building for 3 to 5 years, and I just keep adding and tweaking, which is one big spreadsheet, Google Sheet, that contains 4 columns: QuickBooks Online Essentials, QuickBooks Online Plus, QuickBooks Enterprise, and QuickBooks Desktop. And I have about 150 something features that I compare across all versions, and I highlight in yellow the one that kind of wins on that category. So very proud of this tool as well. Recommend that you check it out if you're trying to decide between any versions of desktop or even online. So I'll post that link in the description of the video as well. And finally, there's a link to download a free trial and there's a free trial US, free trial UK, and free trial Canada. So you can check out that link there. Now, some additional, before I tell you how to buy or where to buy QuickBooks Accountant Edition, let me do a couple of demonstrations here. So let's start with the features that I mentioned to be the really good, important features. One is the Batch Enter tool. To me, the Batch Enter tool is the greatest thing that QuickBooks has ever created in my 12 professional years of using QuickBooks. And that tool is here under the Accountant menu, and you click on Batch Enter Transactions. Now, what the Batch tool allows you to do is allows you to take data that's already on a spreadsheet and allows you to copy and paste it into QuickBooks to quickly enter or import the data. You can import checks, deposits, credit card charges, bills, invoices. Let me start with checks. And just to add some context here, I'm going to open up a spreadsheet that contains essentially a list of checks that I happen to have created with a spreadsheet, or maybe I have some other software, some other system that creates this information for me. And I don't want to sit there and type all these things by hand. So what I do is I configure my QuickBooks to have the same number of columns here. So date, number, name, memo, and amount. So I come in here, I go to customize columns, and I make sure it's got the same column. So we got date, number. Let me just go back for a second and check. Date, number, name, memo, amount. So I got date, number, name. Let me move up memo and move up amount. Okay. So as long as I have the same columns, I can come over to Excel, select the data set, copy it. And if you've never seen this before, and you are a QuickBooks Desktop user, this should technically blow your mind, as it did first time I saw it. So I come in here, I right click on the top left box, hit paste, and it brings in all the data from Excel. Now the last thing I have to do is I have to give it a category. Now if I had the category in Excel, that would paste as well, but most of the times in Excel spreadsheets, you're not really going to have the category. So you come down here and you select every category in which the expense belongs to. So I'm literally just picking them at random here just to simplify the process. But generally you would obviously make sure, check and double check that these accounts that you selected were accurate. So once you're done selecting all the categories of the transactions that you pasted, you are going to click on Save Transactions, and that's going to bring them all into the register without you having to type anything by hand. Okay, so when I click on Save Transactions, you're going to notice that it says $18,000 worth of transactions. I'll click on Save Transactions, click on Yes. And all these things are going to be in my check register. Let me show you real quick. I'm going to go in my check register. And I'm going to put order entered here. And these were all the lines that we just imported, all in one shot. Okay. I'll show you another example just because it's worth mentioning both of the tools, checks and transactions as well. So let's open up invoices. Let me take a look at another spreadsheet I have here that contains invoice information. So I got date, number. I should probably delete this because this is just a blank. Customer name, item, memo, amount. So let's mimic that in QuickBooks. So we got date, number, customer name. Then we had item, memo, amount. So let's move item up. Let's move memo up. Description, and then amount. And all this other stuff we can get rid of. So remove. Okay, I couldn't remove anymore. So I click OK. Come into my spreadsheet. Select my data set. Hit copy. Come over to QuickBooks. Again, if you are a QuickBooks Desktop user and you've never seen this before, it should also technically blow your mind. So we'll hit paste. And there it is. All my dates, my invoice numbers, customer, item, amount. Click Save Transaction. Yes. And 12 invoices were imported within seconds. Okay. So I find the batch enter tool to be a total game changer. I work so fast, especially in tax season, when I'm entering tons of transactions that I have in Excel. So that's the first big tool, big reason why I like QuickBooks Desktop Accountant so much. The second one is this tool called Reclassified Transactions. Very powerful tool. And look, whether you're an accountant or not, you will find yourself noticing that you made a mistake in the way you categorized certain expenses or certain income, and you may want to reclassify it in batch. So while this tool is mostly designed for accountants that are correcting the work that small business owners, clients do, I found that for a lot of my customers that I get them into this edition, that they love this tool because they can go back and check a specific category and reclassify. So for example, I'm going to click on this category here and notice that I have two transactions that maybe I classified incorrectly. Select the two. Come down here where it says account. Select the right category. Let's say that happens to be payroll expenses. Click on reclassify. And I did two in this case, but this can do hundreds of transactions within seconds. Get them off that account and put them in the correct category. You can also reclassify class as well. So if you're using classes, you can add classes in batch. So that's only for people that use classes. So that tool is incredibly powerful. Another great reason to buy the Accountant edition of QuickBooks Desktop. So the next one is batch delete void transactions. Let me show you how that works. So I'm going to go into batch delete and void. Now, unfortunately, the batch delete tool, it's a pretty limited scope. It can only delete, in this case, checks, invoices, or bills. Hopefully, at some point in the future, they'll add more transaction types. But let's say I wanted to delete a bunch of these checks because I entered them by mistake. So I pick and choose which checks I want to delete, select sort it by transaction date, select the specific date range, and then click on review and delete or review and void. And then I can click on backup or delete only. And in a fell swoop, delete a bunch of transactions. Now, deleting transactions is not as common, but every once in a while we make mistakes and we want to delete a whole bunch of transactions in one shot. So that's the batch delete tool. And then finally, from the ones I'm going to demo, we're going to have the merge vendors tool, which is awesome. So to give you some context, sometimes what happens to me is when I'm entering data, I may make the mistake of creating the same vendor too many times. For example, you got Amazon created 4 times here. So I'm going to select 4 of these Amazon vendors and then click on next. And then I select the one that I want to keep, right? The target one. And then I click on merge, and it will take all the transactions for all 4 of these vendors and merge them into one vendor. So essentially, if I tend to create duplicate vendors, that tool is awesome to clean that up. Okay, so those were the ones I mentioned. Those were the 4 tools, that I think are worth mentioning. There's a lot more in the Accountant Edition, but I think those 4 are enough to sell you on it. Now, how do you purchase QuickBooks Accountant Edition? Now, unfortunately, you can't go to the QuickBooks website and buy it directly, and they don't have it in Amazon either. Actually, I think that's great because I'm a reseller. So you can call my office if you want more information about any edition of QuickBooks, or you can click on that link directly, and that will take you into my shopping cart. Show you what that looks like. So it looks like this. And once you select add to cart, you're going to use a coupon code. You're going to click on checkout and use coupon code Black Friday. And it should give you $100 off. So that's coupon code has been available now. So you can just type there Black Friday right there where it says discount. Just type that there and I'll give you $100 off. And I would make very little on the software, but I do make some. So don't feel bad for me for giving you a discount. And that's it. So that is why I love QuickBooks Desktop Accountant Edition, why I think is the best version of QuickBooks, why I think is the best bang for the buck. Email me or call my office if you have any questions. Thank you.